Let's start the tip number 3, which is only owner function modifier. Note that our base contract zombie factory inherits from ownable. We can use the only owner function modifier in zombie feeding as well. And this is because of contract inheritance. This is because of how contract inheritance work. Remember, zombie feeding is inherited from zombie factory, and zombie factory is inherited from ownable. So the uh, all the ownable function can will be accessible to zombie feeding. The zombie feeding is also ownable and can access the function event modifiers from the ownable on contract. This applies to any contract that inherit from zombie feeding in the future as well. Function modifier. Function modifier looks like a function but use the keyword modifier instead of the keyword function, and it can be called directly like a function can. Instead, we can attach the modifier name at the end of the function definition to change that function behavior. Let's take a closer look by examining only owner. Okay, so here it is. The only owner modifier on the renounce membership function, you call the renounce membership the code inside the only owner execute first. So here it is. We have defined it. So it will call first. When you call the renounce, the code inside the only owner execute the first. Then when it hits the underscore semicolon statement in the only owner, it goes back to execute the code inside renounce ownership. So here it is, as I've defined earlier also, that whenever you call a modifier here, it will first go to modifier, uh, first execute this line, then it will going to execute, you find this line. So this line means that you have to this function have to execute the remaining lines of the function that call this only on a modifier. Okay, so while there are other ways you can use modifier, one of the most common use case is to add quick require check before a function executes. In the case of only owner, adding this modifier to a function makes it so only the owner of the contract, you if you deploy it, can call that function. Giving the owner special powers over the contract like this is often necessary, but it could be used maliciously. For example, the owner could add a backdoor function that will allow him to transfer anyone's zombie to himself. So it's important to remember that just because of TF is on Ethereum does not automatically mean it's decentralized. You have to actually read the full source code to make sure it's free of special controls by the owner that you need to potentially worry about. It's, there's careful balance as a developer between maintaining control over DApps such that you can fix potential bugs and building an ownerless platform that your users can trust to secure their data. So as we know that the everything on smart contract will be visible to all the users who are going to use it. So make sure that they're create a function are uh, that are correctly marked as ownable. Don't mark this function that, as they give the example that the owner could add a backdoor function that would allow him to transfer anyone's zombie to himself. So anyone can read your smart contract. So be careful if you are doing some wrong thing. So any user can point it out. So for users, it's also important the one who uses that read the code and understand the logic, what they are trying to implement. Are they trying to do any cheating or anything like that? So we have to uh, keep this in mind when getting a smart contract. Don't create any function that uh, can't be modified. Just like we have seen that we were hard coding the kitty address, which is not correct. Kitty address can be changed, so we have option to modify that address. So that's the one thing. Another thing is that don't implement the function which will going to cheat your users. So let's put it to the test. Now we can restrict access to set contract address so that no one but us can modify it in the future. Add the only owner modifier to set address. Okay, here it is. You have set it. So now this function is actionable but can only be called by the owner. Let's see. That's correct. So we have completed chapter number 3. Now let's move on to chapter number 4.